should we be doing? I would say that if you're doing work in the quadrants that do not focus on policy, you probably are doing really important things, but you are not legacy building. And the theme of my conversation today is, never before in America's social history have we as a field had the opportunity to legacy build. With the early learning challenge, with the incredible commitment that is rising to early education, we now have got to be in the business of legacy building. And legacy building to me means building in durability. It means making sure that all these good things we're doing don't evaporate. So my hope would be that as we forward think, we can plan efforts in all three areas, fully recognizing that they are each accompanied by different time frames, by the development of different constituencies, but that indeed we need them all. I also think that it could be a consolidation tool. And by that I mean we could look at other states, for example, that are more heavily weighted in one area that we could learn from. It also enables us to graphically convey to leaders where indeed we want to go. It's not about whether you call it policy, program, or pedagogy. I mean, I did it because I love the alignment on the P's, but it's really, I did it. But it's about understanding the intentionalities of the different things we are doing and the durability that is associated with each. That's what I'm really begging us to indeed be thinking about. I could see it being used as an evaluation tool where indeed process or progress indicators are developed for each segment and where we can measure and report the results of our progress. This is kind of a visioning that my hope is will get us out of the morass of feeling guilty that we're not doing enough or feeling scattered. There is legitimacy to scattered efforts, so long as they are scattered with some kind of intention. Okay. I'm going to go to the last session, and I hope we can have some conversation about all this. What keeps me awake at night? What are the honest challenges that I see in doing this? There are 5. Number 1, and I'm going to talk about each of these. Number 1, how are we really conceptualizing this thing that we're calling transitional alignment or pre-K to 3? The second is, what is the appropriate focus, match, or quality? And the states with whom I've worked on the alignment analyses know where this comes from, and I'll elaborate on that. What has pre-primary education got to give primary education, and what should we get from it? I don't think we've thought about that. Can we build an effective pre-K to 3 transition, or whatever you want to label the effort, without having a solid early childhood system? And are there any contexts in which a focus on transition is inappropriate? Is there other ECD work that should take precedence? So these are the issues that I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing. Okay, the first is, and notice I put the word transition in quotes because I don't know what to call it anymore. Transition is too old a term, alignment is too narrow a term, pre-K to 3 doesn't embrace the entire system for me, so I don't have a good label for it. But I would say that as I look across the states, and I've not done systematic research on this, it would be a good area to do research on. I think many states are conceptualizing their pre-primary and primary continuum very narrowly. They're looking primarily in the pedagogical effort, spending a lot of time and energy on aligning standards, curriculum, and making revisions. Now, from my point of view, that's really important work, and I appreciate the states that are doing it. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient, and so I am calling for effort in all 3 areas. The related point to this is the issue of schoolification. Peter Moss, who is one of our most eminent thinkers globally on the status of early childhood, is coming out with a new book. he's an internationalist on schoolification, looking at what is happening regarding the nature of early childhood as a result of this trend, which he defines, labels, and acknowledges as schoolification. I wrote the paper on the U.S. context, and frankly, it got me to thinking really hard about this. I do think early childhood is very, very vulnerable, and this is the time to stand tall because of the A, pervasiveness, B, the funding, and C, the durability of education systems in every country. It's not just unique to America. That ideas that begin to bubble up in K-12 are sort of rather quickly absorbed into early childhood. This was one of the reasons why I got voted down so badly on that standards vote, because people said, you're just buying into what's going on in K-12. So, you may have different positions on it, but I do think we've got to be very clear that there are big efforts going on in K-12 and they're going to impact us. One is standards and assessment, and the second and the related issue to that is we are on the cusp of coming forward with two very elaborated systems for assessing at least English language arts and math. That is going to profoundly affect us. It has already affected us. I would submit to you that the mandate for the kindergarten entry assessment in the early learning challenge is a direct result of the entire focus on standards and accountability. How much more wonderful would it have been, and the writers of this did try, to call for the development of broad-based assessment systems in the pre-primary field. And it's in there, but it definitely is not as valued as the kindergarten entry assessment. My point is, like it or not, this schoolification stuff is really happening. A second area where it's happening, and we were just talking a few minutes ago, about teacher quality. The big thing in K-12 education now is measuring teacher quality and using children's progress as the benchmark for that quality. Now, there are a number of people working very hard, Linda Darling Hammond and a lot of other colleagues, to try to retilt that thinking so that it's not, teacher quality is not only based on outcome, but be assured that child outcomes will be an important component of any approach to teacher quality. We've got to grapple with that. And finally, the issue of early childhood moving into departments of education. I do want to comment on this. The growing trend, because of the challenges inherent in creating new departments, like Massachusetts, is to move the consolidated efforts for early childhood into departments of education. That has incredible advantages. We can get it done. Number two, it enables the kinds of pre-K to 3 linkages that indeed we've been talking about. It has just slight disadvantages. It does eclipse the 0 to 3 focus. It does make us very, very vulnerable to the trends that exist in American education being transmitted and morphed into, transmorphed, that's an interesting word, transmitted and morphed into what we are doing almost without our really realizing it or being conscious of it. It is the reason why I am so enamored with the Massachusetts structure, because it gives early childhood a chance to stand tall, independent of K-12 education while providing systematic linkages to it. I'm not denigrating the placement of consolidated early childhood efforts in departments of education, but for those of you who sit there, there is eternal vigilance that is going to need to be executed. So my point is, I would say to you that we're conceptualizing this thing very narrowly, and indeed, in that narrow conceptualization, we are in jeopardy of being quite vulnerable to being schoolified and to paying insufficient attention to the programmatic third and the policy third. Okay. The second honest challenge is this issue of match or quality. Everywhere I go, I hear alignment, pre-K third. And to me, it seems like the focus, or at least the way this is being internalized in the minds of K to 12, is that we just need to match up. And by the way, PS early childhood, that means you matching up to us, right? But I want to say, sometimes match is not really good. When you're matching up two things that shouldn't be matched, having continuity could actually be the very, very worst thing. So if you have two ends of a wobbly bridge, and you're trying to match them, you get the facade of a bridge, but you don't get any quality there. Just because the two ends are matched, it doesn't mean that the bridge has overcome its wobbliness, so to speak. The point here is that I worry that in the name of all of this alignment, the quality that we hold dear in the field and that we know is appropriate for very, very young children is being badly eclipsed. So match and quality are two indicators that need to be brought together. The third issue, what has pre-primary got to give primary and what should it take or get? I don't think we've really thought about this really hard as a field. So I want to offer Lynn's very preliminary thoughts on this and ask you to brainstorm in your heads and hearts about what you think, and I would hope that you might disagree with me. But here's a lens for the way I'm thinking about it. The three areas of the wheel are along the vertical axis: pedagogy, program, and policy. And the two columns to the immediate right are, first one is what ECE should give to K-12 in an ideal world, and then what ECE should take in an ideal world. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. And let's have discussions about this. I think we've got a lot more to give than we've got to get on pedagogy. That's the bottom line. I think we should be giving developmental and multicultural orientations. I think our field really does this well, and I'm not sure that K-12 anywhere does it as well. Clearly, our child-centered pedagogy is something that we know is appropriate for very, very young children, and by that I mean through the third grade. The idea of thematic and integrated instruction is a modality that excites and engages children. We're pretty expert at that. And I also think that we, for all K-12's talk about assessment, that it was we, through the note cards in our smock pockets, brought to the world the idea of observing with clarity individual children's progress and doing it repeatedly over time. That's ours. We should claim it.